The brand new update of World of Tanks console is here today, and today we're going to have a look at exactly what came in with this operation, including the two brand new vehicles that we've not had in the game before, alongside some of the contract vehicles that have now entered the game as well, and combine that with some of the events which feature one of the best XP events that you can possibly hope for within the game, and how you can take advantage of that within this video. So hopefully you guys will enjoy. Of course, today we have the Object 259A entering into the game. This is a Soviet tier 8 heavy tank that Wargaming have said is like an IS-7, but probably looks a hell of a lot more like the Object 260, which is a tier 10 Soviet vehicle and a premium one at that. And so with the Object 260, you can see basically the side profile. It looks somewhat similar in terms of the turret. It isn't exactly the same, and certainly if you were to compare the two, there's a difference with the lower plate. This tank has a weird lower plate whereby you have this diamond shaped area on the front of the vehicle, which doesn't typically have your normal lower plate. However, the armor model of this tank, although it seems like it might be pretty good, having basically no real lower plate, although you can pen that diamond very easily, as soon as you start to turn, everyone can pen each side of that kind of angled armor. So whichever way you look, there is at least one weak point, if not multiple, that people can pen. So this tank's armor is definitely not going to be anywhere near as good as what you will see with an IS-7. You'll also notice that the armor thickness of these plates is not particularly insane either. You have 120mm on the top of the vehicle, which to all intents and purposes is quite well angled. It is quite a kind of steep angle for you to be able to pen reliably, but I mean when you're looking down into it, maybe you're brawling it, you should be able to pen it quite easily. And of course then if anyone's using the kind of lower half of the vehicle trying to pen it or trying to angle like this, you can pen straight through the side of the lower plate alongside the front of the lower plate as well, which should be very straightforward to go through. It's not going to take a whole lot. You also have a cupola on the top of the vehicle that you can pen, and there's two of them. The first one is very more prominent, and then the frontal turret armor, although it is somewhat decent, does have some pretty flat plates either side of the mantlet, which you can see kind of here. It's 260mm, but up against some of the tier 10s that you'll be fighting, 268 is kind of the medium tank standard pen, so you can get pen through the turret as well. And as soon as you start to turn like this, everyone is going to be able to pen the turret, which yeah, is almost the case for most vehicles in the game, but it certainly is going to feel pretty bad for this one. But either way, the tank has some nuances to it. It's got 420 alpha, which is not that similar to a lot of the other vehicles. However, it actually lacks so bad with the damage per minute that you have a 14-second reload to deal with that 420 damage. And if we compare it to some of the other tier 8 heavy tanks from the Soviet line, a thing like the IS-M, it's kind of similar to a degree. However, even the IS-M has more kind of damage per minute than of course the newest vehicle, and the things like the IS-3 Auto, which I have the same amount of equipment, no commander in it, that has an additional 300 damage per minute over the Object 259A. And certainly some of the armor models of things like this are slightly better, even if the upper plate is, you know, maybe not as good comparatively, but still the armor model is not going to save you with the 259A. So you've really got to play it like a kind of a trading heavy tank, making sure that you get hold down if you can, and making sure that you're kind of wiggling the front just to make those angles really difficult to kind of pinpoint and target from people, and hope that you get a bit of an auto bounce off of some of them. But of course that might be more harder than it looks, considering how big the upper plate is, and when you angle like this, they're going to go straight through that upper plate. However, it is possible to bounce off of this thing. As soon as people are above you, your armor becomes paper and people can pen you everywhere, so just be aware of that. You also don't really want to side scrape, reverse side scrape with this thing, because although you could, it has this kind of angled back plate, which you can see on the left and right hand side here, kind of shining in the light there, and on this side shining in the light. That is going to be able to be basically penned if you try and reverse side scrape out like this. Now you can do it to bait a shot, but at the same time you can do that with the front as well. So it's really a case of reverse side scraping with this vehicle, probably not going to go all too well, and the back plates of this tank are not very good either. So if you do actually give any of that back plate, then you are most likely going to get penned because it's only 17mm thick. So just be aware of that when you come up against this vehicle, or if you're trying to use it in a reverse side scrape manner. It isn't flat like you would see with some of the other vehicles where they don't have that kind of angled back plate, so you can reverse side scrape out like this and try and do it, but unfortunately that isn't the case with the 259A. But nonetheless, it looks like a fun tank. I think it's going to be an interesting one. Its top speed of 60 kilometers an hour is good. However, the power to weight ratio isn't insane, allowing you to, probably take a while to get up to top speed. It has 6 degrees of gun depression, which is, okay for a heavy tank. Some of the other ones that you'll see have slightly less. Some have slightly more, but to all intents and purposes, it's on the higher range for the Soviet heavies. Not the highest, but definitely usable in quite a few positions. Are you going to be able to go hold down like a Super Conqueror or a Conqueror? Absolutely not, but at the same time, you should be able to make quite a few positions work. And you have to work around these things in order to have these good results that you're probably hoping to get. Of course, this tank does not get any additional silver bonuses other than the standard one of 150%. The accuracy of this tank is not particularly great. You've got 0.4, and so in terms of setting it up, you probably want advanced loader, probably having something like maybe even the speed boost equipment to get you up to top speed quicker and enable yourself to kind of have a better power to weight ratio. You may want to take gun stabilizer, but that's completely down to you. And I would always recommend taking advanced optics just so that you can spot opponents that are going to be trying to outspot you. And then of course your typical consumables and making sure that you got enhanced rations as one of them. But either way, premium round penetration 285 is amazing, with a standard penetration of 233, which is actually relatively good for a Soviet heavy tank, and in fact one of the higher ones. So maybe you'll be able to pen a lot more things with this vehicle. And certainly with those heat rounds you will be able to, considerably higher than everything else bar a couple vehicles. So the Object 259A going to rely on being a better in tier 10 games, but the armor will not hold up again in those games, so just be very, very careful in those sorts of games. Any additions that you can get to damage per minute are going to be welcomed with this vehicle, so just try and do that. Otherwise you are going to be lacking on your reload speed. So that is basically Object 259A. It's in the game right now. If you want to pick it up, you can go to the World War II tank section, and here you go, 8,800 gold if you want to pick it up as the base version, which is what I always recommend if you're going to buy a tank. But you can buy a loaded version which comes with some XP boosters and stuff like that, but to be honest with you, that I wouldn't recommend buying them with the XP boosters, because often you can pick up the XP boosters for cheaper if you buy them in a bundle. So you're better off buying this and then getting the XP boosters at a significantly discounted rate. For the most part, obviously you can do the math yourself to work out if it is worth it, but often the XP boosters are on 50% and even upwards of 70% when they are on sale sometimes. So just bear that in mind if you are thinking about it. And the Ultimate Bundle is something I would highly recommend against, because it basically gives you everything that you got in the loaded bundle, except you then get a load of equipment that's valued at, between 500,000 and 550,000, so essentially 1.5 million, but you are paying 2.1 thousand gold for that honor. And of course, a lot of the time some equipment is on sale, like it is right now, I believe it's still on sale at 25% off, so it's even less worth it for you. But of course you can weigh that up in your own eyes. Maybe you have an abundance of money, which is a nice place to be, but at the same time, for the majority of people probably watching this, you may have significantly less, or at least less expendable money to spend on a virtual tank on the game. But either way, it would cost you about £9 or something if you wanted to purchase the top bundle, as opposed to about 25, something like that for the kind of lower bundle, or maybe just under £30 for the lower bundle. So of course, weigh it up if you like it. If you think that you'll like it, we'll do a full tank review. So if you want to hold off until we've done a tank review so you can see whether or not I like it and whether I would recommend it fully after playing it, then let me know in the comment section down below that you want to see that, but I will be doing it in this week, so just hold off if you want to see that first. I guarantee that we'll do that. And then of course there is another vehicle that's come into the game for the Cold War lot. It comes in with of course one of the K tanks. This is a wherever it is, I'm trying to find it. There it is. This is the Chrysler K tank, and no, it isn't a Chrysler K. It's completely different looking and almost like a pattern with a weird KV3 type turret. It's a very strange looking vehicle, but this one has super high alpha damage for its era 2. It has 780 damage, but of course with that you are going to have a relatively long reload. Similar to that, you're also going to have a gun launcher. So this is a 152mm gun launcher, XM150E5. This tank has essentially multiple different rounds. Each of the different rounds have increased penetration dependent on which round they are. And the kind of higher round, which fires an ATGM, it has the option for either. You've got an ATGM or you've got your standard ammunition, so you can swap between them. But the ATGM does 1100 damage and 450 pen, and the standard rounds have 350 pen with 780 damage. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty solid vehicle. To be honest with you, lots of flexibility and a decent reload for sure. Whether or not it will be overpowered or anything like that, I'm not entirely sure, since the armor model of this vehicle doesn't look particularly great. It looks like it's going to be fairly slow to get up to top speed, considering its power to weight ratio. And of course, you've got 10 degrees of gun depression as well, which should help you out on a couple of ridge lines. Damage per minute of this vehicle, 3,370, is okay. Of course, that doesn't factor into the account choosing the ATGM as well, so just bear that in mind. So yeah, realistically, this tank looks really, really fun to play. I'm looking forward to getting into it, and when you start putting on the kind of reload equipment, you'll see your damage per minute go up considerably to some of the more competitive vehicles in the game, and probably a similar sort of level. But either way, the Chrysler K tank in the game looks like a one that we should probably try out, and of course maybe we'll be trying it out on stream later on in the week. If you want to join me in that, then you can see me live. Otherwise, we'll do a full tank review on this one too during this week as well. So that's the two tanks. We've got the Chrysler K tank, and we've also got the Object 259A. So that's not it, because there's quite a few extra bits that have come in to the game as well. For those of you that didn't already know, the contracts for some of the other vehicles, like for example the sharpshooter, have ended. So if you want to pick them up, you're going to have to pay an inordinate amount of gold to be able to skip it, which I would never recommend, because 30,000 gold for a sharpshooter is never ever worth it. And so yes, I didn't actually end up completing this, which is another mercenary contract we get, like, I don't know, a long way through, and then end up not being able to complete it. But either way, the new tanks that you can actually pick up as part of this are the Tusk. Now the Tusk is the tier 10 light tank from the mercenary line that has kind of a combination of an AMX hull alongside a Sheridan turret with the derp gun. So it seems to be like it will be a decent kind of tank in the game. Think of it like a Sheridan but with an AMX hull. That is basically the tank. There's not much to say about it really, and it definitely is one of the more kind of, I guess, funny looking vehicles. You can see it here. You've probably seen them in the battlefield rolling around, but yeah, it's a derp light tank again, and so yeah, it's a decent one at that. And then we also got the Lawgiver added in as well, which you can complete if you haven't already got it. It's a tier 4, I believe. So yeah, I mean, would I ever recommend going for it? Probably not, unless you've got nothing else to actually do. Of course, the Slapjack has 6 days left on its one, and the KV4 KTTS has a few more weeks, or 2 weeks basically, until that is complete. Other than that though, this is where the kind of best XP operation comes into effect. This is the string theory. Now, string theory is something that you can take advantage of if you are both a new player, someone who doesn't play a lot, and of course an experienced player. Now, the amount of XP that you're going to get as an experienced player is going to be higher because you can guarantee victories. And why do victories count for this operation? Well, string theory is essentially an operation whereby the more wins you get in a row, so in a row, you'll get more XP per game. So starting off, you will have a 0 win streak when you first log on to the game. 0 out of 2 is what it will say. Of course, then if you complete 2 battles, you win 2 battles in a row, you'll get 200% XP for that battle. But don't worry, because if you then get 3 wins in a row, you'll get 300% XP for that game. And this goes up to 500% XP for 5 wins. So 300% XP for 3 wins, 400% for 4 wins, 500% for 5 wins. If you then consecutively get more wins after winning 5 in a row, so you get 7, you get 8, it will still be times 5 XP. So for all of those games, it will be times 5 XP. Obviously, most people are not going to be able to get 20 wins in a row, getting 5 times XP for essentially 15 or 16 battles. And of course, most people are going to be probably between maybe 2 wins in a row to 3 wins in a row as a rough estimate. Kind of as you go through, you'll pick up quite a few of those just by playing the game and getting a bit lucky. Of course, if you're more experienced and you can impact the game and win more games dependent on your win rate, then you can certainly get way more XP. And of course, playing to win at the moment is probably the biggest thing that you can do if you're trying to grind through tanks. So make sure that you are focusing on trying to win the game during this next bit. If you're playing and you're trying to get through some of the tech tree tanks like myself, then we want to make sure that we're winning as many games as possible. And so if you have to throw yourself away to get that win, then 100% do it, because that's literally what I do all the time. So essentially that is the way to kind of go with the operation. And if you want to get extra XP, because I have had upwards of 20,000 per game when you reach the 5 times XP, and I've been able to consistently win more than 5 times XP for a few games. Lower tiers typically are easier because you have more of an impact as an experienced player down in those tiers. So I mean, as you get to tier 10, it's a lot harder to impact the game on an individual level where you can win more, and it is more challenging, which is going to be harder for you to complete this operation. Similarly with tier 9, it kind of gets easier as you go down the tiers, especially if you're playing in overpowered tanks. Now, one thing people will do is play overpowered tanks at the lower tiers because it's easier. And then they'll jump into their kind of struggling tank and hope that they win with the increased or like kind of win bonus. So they might get up to 3 wins in a row in the low tiers, jump into their kind of tank that they actually want to grind, and then they'll try and get the win in that game, and then they'll get 4 times XP. Maybe they'll get 5 times depending on how you did it. And that's kind of a way to game the system. Of course, you are missing out on XP during playing those couple of games to get the double XP or triple XP or whatever you want to get. But of course, that's down to your own personal preference. Maybe you'll just play that one tank throughout the entire experience of the string theory. But yeah, combine it with the fact that you can have double XP boosters, and you can also have the other operation which gives you double XP, which is the hat trick, which is infinitely repeatable. And essentially it's 1 per day per vehicle, so every single day you'll get this on one of your vehicles, and all you have to do is destroy 3 or more vehicles in a battle. So 3 tanks in a battle will give you 200% XP, which is pretty good. And you add that on top of potential boosts with the string theory, you can have thousands and thousands of XP every single game. And I highly recommend grinding right now through some of those tech trees that you might be finding a bit of a struggle. And if you want to kind of cheat the system or game the system, then you can play lower tiers and essentially play in overpowered tanks, which a lot of people do during this operation. Now myself, I probably will never be doing this, but it's there for some of you to take advantage of if you want to. But of course, other than that, there is a team play a enabler, which is also available once per day per vehicle, which is assisting 250 or more damage in a battle, which will give you 125 XP as well. You've got the medium tank mastery or the tank mastery. I just selected mediums, where you can get yourself some ace tankers, which gives you a variety of different rewards as you go through each of the stages. And then, of course, the Year of the Dragon is still continuing with the season, which you can unlock extra XP and extra silver bonuses once you get to level 120, I want to say, or level 118 and level 124. And when you complete the season, you'll get 124% bonus XP. Or there you go, look. 125% bonus XP on every single battle that you play when you get to rank 100, so make sure that you do that if you want to grind out as much XP as possible. And it's not particularly too difficult to complete the season relatively quickly with all of the season challenges that we have available. It's just a case of playing quite a few games to complete those kind of game locked vehicles, like destroy one enemy 35 times, or block 22,500 damage, or damage 2 enemies 40 times, so essentially damaging 2 enemies in 40 games. So it's just a case of playing 40 games for most people. But other than that, that is literally it. I'd be interested to see what your guys' opinion are on the 2 new tanks, the Object 259A and of course the STRV, well, the K tank, the Chrysler K tank, not the STRV-K, I'm an idiot. But either way, yeah, let me know. And of course, the XP operation with string theory. If you've got anything else to add, or maybe I missed something, then let me know in the comment section down below and let everyone else know. I'm sure they'll be much appreciated for that. And yeah, make sure to stay tuned because we'll have a tank review for each of these vehicles in the upcoming days. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.